Thank you everybody for coming out. I did beat Ash last time in poker. Just want to point that out to everyone. We're going to talk about owner financing. I have done owner financing. Has anyone, raise their hands, done it before on the sell side or on the buy side? No one. Oh, one. We have one. Awesome. Sweet. This property right here is the one that I did do owner financing on, and I turned it into a short-term rental. And then we'll have photos on this slide throughout the entire PowerPoint that are of the property too. So just take note of those as we go through it. So first off, what is owner financing? And there's no bank involved. And I also want to start by saying that this is more of an advanced strategy that I did on my third property that I purchased. So if you're on your first or second property, definitely talk to Sam to do a normal lending tactic before you get into something like this, because there's a lot you need to know. Could be attorneys involved and all that fun stuff. But no bank is involved. You're working directly to the seller, so you're negotiating with the seller too. And you can get very creative on what types of terms you want to use, what types of down payment works best for you. The seller is going to be becoming the bank. So instead of going to the bank and saying, hey, let me borrow some money, you just go to the seller and say, hey, you have a lot of equity in your property. Can we just borrow that equity in exchange for me paying you monthly and you give me back the property, is how it works. And then it typically works best when you're at 90 to 100% of equity. It can be more than that, but oftentimes you're just going to have a higher down payment if you are going that route. So the benefits for the buyer that we're going to talk about first is that you can negotiate it to where it works so you can cash flow on the deal and make money, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Whether that's down payment, interest rate, time frame, years amortized, you can work in balloon payments in there. Does anyone know what a balloon payment is? Raise a hand. Lots of nods. Yes. Okay. A balloon payment is basically 30 years, your loan's amortized, and then you say there's a balloon payment on year 5, which means that the whole loan is due at year 5. But that doesn't mean you have to necessarily give them that lump sum. You just have to sell it or refinance your property so that you're out of that loan with that person and onto a new loan with another bank. Kind of like in commercial, they do it most often. It's usually like a 3, 5, 7-year balloon payment that ends up happening. You can qualify a bit easier because there's no banks involved. It's just your relationship with the seller. And if they want to check your credit, if they want to look at your debt to income ratio, they can definitely do that. But when I did it, they didn't do any of those things. So it really just is up to the seller that you're working with. And I would say it really comes down to the relationship that you have with the seller at the end of the day. If you build that trust and a good relationship with them, they'll most likely want to move forward with you.
In real estate, first impressions can make or break a deal. Whether you're listing a home for sale or marketing an investment property, having high quality photos are key at grabbing attention. If you want to stand out in the competitive Colorado Springs market, having high quality photos is essential. And Wayne over at Hamadi excels at getting the best possible photos for your property. He is based right here in Colorado Springs and specializes in capturing properties in the best light. If you're ready to take your property photos to the next level, make sure to contact Wayne over at Homadi and mention you heard about him from Tanner at Red and Joy Real Estate to get 20% off your next shoot. Remember, great photos can make the difference between a quick sale and a stale listing. So make sure to contact Wayne over at Homadi today.
And lower closing costs. You aren't going to be paying any lender fees because the lender is the seller and you're buying their property. And so I would say when I bought mine, my closing costs were like $2,000 when they should have been like $20,000 because I wasn't paying any lender fees at the time. And then if you do the inspection, that's one of the costs that you have to budget for, which is like any home purchase. And on the appraisal side, I didn't do an appraisal on mine, which probably should have, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing at the time. But it's not required since it's just the seller that's giving you the property at that point. Now the benefits to the seller. This is what you're going to tell the seller, trying to sell them on doing owner financing, because a lot of people aren't going to be educated on the topic. The first one is going to be taxes. Instead of getting one lump sum, the seller is going to get in payments over the course of X amount of time, and they won't have to pay capital gains tax on those payments every single month. It's going to be, they won't have to pay as much, it will say, compared to if they get $1 million now, paying taxes on that compared to $5,000 a month over the course of 30 years. They'll save on the taxes, which is probably the biggest benefit that most people end up wanting to do owner financing. They get that consistent monthly income. So if you find someone that's like, I want to sell it, I want monthly payments, can you just give me $5,000 a month? You can definitely work that into your deal, change the interest rate, change the down payment to make that work, or just be like, hey, 0%, this is the price, I'll give you $5,000 a month for 10 years. If that's what they want, then that's what they want. Sign the contract and you're good to go. Oftentimes with owner financing, you can do a bit of a higher price to make it make sense for the seller to accept your deal if they do a lower interest rate. Like for example, right now rates are around the 6.5%, 7% mark, and oftentimes your numbers aren't going to make sense to do that. So you could increase the purchase price, cut that rate in half to 3%, and then it might make more sense for you to make that purchase. Is one of the ways for a seller to be more motivated if they're thinking only about, oh, I want this purchase price. It's like, okay, I can give you that price if you give me my terms for the deal. More benefits. You have control over the terms as the seller. I would say interest rate is going to be a big one to really sell a seller on, because then if you calculate it, hey, over 30 years, you're going to get 6% interest in addition to the purchase price that we're agreeing to. So that's more money going into your pocket. And most sellers will see it more as an investment at that point and compare it to the stock market, other real estate investments, things like that, depending on where they're at in their investing career. You can get more possible buyers as a seller by offering owner financing, because then you can get more people like, oh, we want these terms, and kind of compare all the offers. Plus, you can get a standard offer coming from a conventional buyer, a FHA buyer, VA buyer, and combined with all the owner financing potential too. And you're probably wondering, as the seller, what are my protections that I have? You're basically like the bank, and so one of the contracts that we're going to go over here later is going to be stating that you are taking the property as collateral, and if the buyer does not make any of their payments, you can foreclose on them, take the property back, and keep all the money that they've already given you, basically like a bank would do if you stop paying them. As long as they put it in the contract, though. If it's not in the contract, then it's kind of a free-for-all at that point. So get creative. We have some examples here, and these are a lot of the terms. These are the ones that are most commonly negotiated. A fun one to throw in is always interest-only payments. You can really make it work out well by doing that, especially if you have to do a lot of rehab up front. You're like, hey, I'm adding all this value. It's going to cost me a lot of money, a lot of vacant units during this time. Can we do interest-only payments? So our first example is $500,000 down. I would say this first example is more common in the market when you see a property that's listed for sale. So $500,000 purchase price, 25% down, 6.5% interest rate. Usually I'll see they'll do it like 1% less or 0.5% less than what market rates are, especially if they have a broker with them. That's what the broker is going to say if they're not familiar with how owner financing works. Amortized over 30 years with a 5-year balloon payment, so you'll have to either sell the property or refinance at that 5-year mark. Example number 2, you could go up to $530,000, do 10% down payment with an interest rate of 4.75%, amortized over 40 years, so your payment's going to be a little bit smaller over that 40-year period to allow for the cash flow to actually make sense at that time. 7-year balloon, I just kind of threw in there. I always think that the longer time period you have for a balloon, for the amortization, the better. And it gives you more time to see what the market is going to do to kind of calculate, make any strategic changes with your property at that time. Because maybe you'd want to sell it at year 3 because it's a seller's market and appreciation increased quite a lot. And then this is kind of an option that you could do for the interest-only payments of 2 years of interest-only and then switching to principal and interest at that time to start paying down the principal.
If you're planning to get photos done on your next listing or rental property, don't forget to reach out to Wayne with Homati to get 20% off your next shoot.
So the documents that you're going to need. When I did it, we just had the purchase and sale agreement. We just used a standard Colorado the Colorado Commission state contracts that we all use as real estate agents. A promissory note, I hired an attorney to write up the promissory note and the deed of trust. And the deed of trust is the same thing that any mortgage lender is going to give you when you do close on the property. On signing day, you'll sign the deed of trust, and that's basically just saying, hey, this promissory note that you said is an IOU is actually real, and you have to live by it. Pretty simple. So how do you find the owner finance deals? The MLS, they do have a tag on there that says owner financing. You can sort them all. I would say on the investment side, there was probably 2 as of this morning when I looked, so they're not just hanging out there. You're probably gonna have to do stuff off market in order to find an owner finance deal, and it does take a lot of work and effort, which is definitely why it's more of on the advanced side of the real estate strategy to use. Zillow, finding for sale by owners, you could possibly go that route. A lot of people do hit up the FSBO people, and so they might be into it, but that's just an option. But off-market is definitely going to be the space to go. I'll tell you how I was doing off-market stuff here in a second. It's very common in the commercial and investor space because they are more investor-minded. They understand that they can get a return, and they understand the benefits of owner financing. And if they have a $1 million property, they're probably like, yeah, I don't want to pay capital gains on all this money I'm about to make, so I'd rather just delay it over time so I can save money on taxes, because investors love to save money on taxes. Wraparound mortgage. So this is like owner financing. I don't really like this type of owner financing. I just figured I should talk about it because you've probably heard about it. And it's basically when a seller has a mortgage and they want to sell the property, and they just put a new mortgage that they create with their equity in the property around that current mortgage, which you could argue is owner financing, but you could possibly trip the due on sale clause at this point. So I would probably stay away from this type of owner financing and aim for someone that has full equity in the property or close to full equity, so you don't have to deal with those types of concerns in doing owner financing. So before we go into the deal that I purchased, does anyone have any questions about anything to clear up owner financing? Yes?
Attorney costs?
Attorney costs. I probably paid a little bit over $1,000 for my attorney. It wasn't too much, but I can just give you the contract for $20 if you want it. So, or you could just use AI too and be like, hey, write me a promissory note. That could work too. Yeah. And after this, we are going to do a book raffle. If anyone wants to scan the QR code, we have them spread out around to make sure you do that too. Any other questions?
Are you going to go over how to maybe find the owners or talk to them, contact them?
I wasn't planning on it. That would just be more of like off-market finding people.
Do you have strategies like that?
I have strategies for that. I'm actually talking at another meetup. It's about commercial real estate next month, and I'm doing stuff on off-market marketing and finding owners, so I can let you know when that is, and it'll be the same thing. Yeah. Anything else? No? Cool. So the fourplex that I purchased, this lovely home right here, built in the year 1900, and it needed a lot of maintenance, and it still does every single month. And it's true about old houses, they need maintenance, especially when they're short-term rentals. So I found it. At first, I did 7 months of off-market marketing, so I guess I will talk about it for like 30 seconds right here. I was sending out mailers to people that I specifically targeted that had 100% equity and had owned the property for a very long time, and this was all throughout Colorado Springs. Most of these people were commercial property owners. There wasn't a ton that had like a multifamily property that would work well, because I wanted to house hack it too, was my goal. And the reason I was doing this is because I couldn't qualify for a loan at all, because I needed 2 years of my taxes at the time. So I had no luck for 7 months. Did sell a few commercial properties through doing the marketing, so it did pay for itself in doing that. And I was looking on the MLS to see if anything would pop up as owner financing, and I saw one that had been on there for 100 days, reached out to them and started talking with them like, hey, I'm interested, this is what I can do, can you make that work with me? And she said, yeah, just come over and look at it. She was the owner of the property and a real estate agent here in town. got to know her and her husband pretty well, met the dogs and everything. Just kind of built that relationship with the owner so that they would want to trust me. And it really came down to that they wanted to give a young person in real estate a chance to kind of get into owning real estate investment properties, is why they ended up going with the terms that we negotiated on. So the property, when I bought it, it's in the old North End. A lot of the properties there, probably around $1 million purchase price, I would say. And this one converted from a 3-unit into a 4-unit to kind of add value in that sense, and updated the 2 of the units so far. And it was about $125,000 in updating the property. And it is 2 short-term rentals in the main unit and then the upper unit, which is a 2-1 and a 5-2. And we just open the door and it becomes a 7-3 for a short-term rental, which does very well for really big parties. It sleeps 20. And I'd say like Air Force graduation, Colorado College, UCCS graduation is one of the biggest months for it. People will come and spend $5,000 in a weekend just to stay here for graduation, which does best for short-term rentals. We can talk about that another time. Okay, so I live in the basement, which is a 400 square foot, 1-1 apartment. And then there's a side unit as well, which is also a 1-1, but it's a bit larger. And that one's a long-term rental there that I had for about 2 years. And the original plan was to rehab the whole thing and turn it all into a short-term rental while I lived in the basement. But I couldn't kick out an old lady. So that's why it didn't go to plan very well. She ended up staying there like 18 months longer than she was supposed to because she couldn't move into her nursing home. That was also a new build. So it just didn't work out for that timing. And I didn't want to be that guy to kick out an old lady. And she was there for 40 years, which was like even more like, oh, I can't do this to her. And then in the back, which I'll have an aerial shot here in a second, there's 2 2-car garages, which really sold the deal for me, because then I rent that out to a contractor. He stores his cars and some of his contracting materials and stuff back there. He's pretty quiet, doesn't bother me, and that turned out to be very well to get more rental income on the property. So the terms of the deal. They were asking 1.4. I got them down to 1.3. We did 10% down, amortized over 30 years at a 4% interest rate. And this was in 2023 when rates were at 8% at the time. I did a 10-year balloon payment, which came out to being about $5,500. And then the other thing that also worked out very well is I had some private money investors involved with me. It was family. And one of them backed out, so I told the owner this. I'm like, hey, I would love to buy it, but I lost a private money lender. And it was actually her idea. She was like, what if we just lend you the money? I was like, oh, well, yeah, if you like me that much, then yeah, let's do it. And so she did a down payment loan of $100,000, and it was a 9% interest rate, interest-only payments. And then with my grandpa, I did the rehab loan of $125,000, and then we did 36 months at 9% interest rate for that to be paid back, with the plan of fixing the property up, making it look nice and pretty, adding value to it by going from 3 to 4 units, and then pulling out a HELOC or refinancing at that time, whatever the options are kind of looking like. And then here's the property right in the middle, and these are the 2-car garages facing the back alley right there. So the breakdown of the property. This is the total of all those loans. Insurance used to not be that high, it's at $790 now. I had a sewer line break and it doubled. So talk to Ash about insurance, and that causes problems when you have water issues. They don't like that at all. So stay away from anything that's having water issues when you're talking to insurance. Another thing to note, that I knew the sewer line was going to be a problem because it was a clay line, it had some root intrusion. Tried to get the seller to fix it. She said, no, we're already doing this much for you, we're not going to do more. So then I was like, okay. I found out with insurance you can add on like a sewer line policy in there so that if anything breaks for it, they'll cover it. It's like an extra $65 a month. So I did that, and then my deductible when it was $8,000 to fix was only $500. So it did work out pretty well. So talk to insurance to figure out any of those small benefits that you can add on to your policy to make sure you're covered for any major concerns that you're seeing on your property. The utilities average is $708. I would say in the summertime, it's ridiculously high because we have all the electrical running for the AC units because there's no AC throughout the entire property. And then wintertime does pretty good. And then the maintenance average right there, it fluctuates every single month. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. Comes out to about $9,000. The short-term rentals make $6,000. The side unit right here makes $1,500, and then the garages are at $930. So I end up living in the property and paying $1,000 a month in rent to myself. The one thing that we didn't cover on this last one was the down payment, and it was $130,000 loan. I was the real estate agent on the deal for my own property, so she paid me $25,000. So my total down payment was $5,000 to buy this property, which is probably what makes it super, super cool. It's a complete equity play in the wrong one, and that's why I was okay paying $1,000 a month in rent, because over, say I live there for 3 years, that's $36,000, and I only paid $5,000 to start. So we're at 41 right there, which is still a great deal when you think of it that way. Plus we're getting loan paid down, appreciation too, is why I was comfortable making this type of a deal work. I was thinking more long-term appreciation and equity play on this deal. Because in 30 years, 5,000 turned into 1.3 is going to be a fantastic return, and we'll do another meetup all about that. Any questions about any of that? Yes?
Is the stipulation for this being a short-term rental that you live in the house and owner occupied?
Yep.
That's required no matter where?
Yeah.
If it's a 1900 built house and you knew there was plumbing issues, the fact that you have short-term rentals and you have Air Force parties, that doesn't cause you like nightmares every night that the plumbing is going to back up? So I knew you knew it was an issue before.
Yeah, it does cause me nightmares. Yeah.
House and like
Yeah.
they can accommodate a lot of people, but I'm like, I can't come because they're going to cost too much stuff.
Yeah. So it does have larger sewer lines that are 6 inches instead of the normal 4 inches, which was good at the time to know. I didn't actually find that out until we had the line collapse, and they're like, oh, this is actually 6 inches, which is good, but it collapsed, so we do have to fix that. And when it did collapse, it did back up, and I'm in the lowest unit, so all of that sewage water is just coming into my bathtub. And so I've experienced just taking water, dumping it, and it was a horrible weekend. And yeah.
So the insurance cover that, even though like insurance rates is like normally they inspect it, right? And that's like an older known issue, they still covered it?
They did, yes. So it costs $8,000 to fix. And the only reason that they covered it is because it was in the back alley area. If it's anything underneath the property, they won't cover it. So if it would have been underneath my garage, they wouldn't have covered it. Yep.
So this is a comment for people that are thinking of using seller finance as part of their investment strategy to sell properties. To get out of single-family rentals in Colorado, or just as a fix and flip it to exit. I'm kind of connected with a secondary market for those kind of notes. And if you're going to sell, with any possibility of wanting to recapitalize by selling the note, make sure you have bulletproof paperwork and records of due diligence, and you go through the whole process with like a RMLO. And also the interest rate matters, because that's going to affect your discount. And you might be giving them like an attractive rate. Better to give them some other attractive terms and actually charge a premium, because you're going to be paying a discount or getting a discount any way you slice it if you go to sell that note.
Good to know. Yep.
What's your exit strategy for this? Are you planning on keeping this long term or getting out?
Yeah. So the strategy is I'm going to rehab the 1-1 unit and turn it into a short-term rental, and I would expect the income for that to double. So then I'd probably make $1,000 living in it every single year, and then I would probably live in it for part-time of the year and keep the short-term rental running, because you have to live in it for half the year in order to do the short-term rental. I don't know if I would still rent it out short-term, like my unit, to someone else. It's very loud in the basement, all the footsteps all over the place, so I don't know how that would go. But yeah, that's the strategy as of right now.